Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravajakachari Satirasata Shishimam Jagat Guru Saraswarupa Ananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravajakachari Satirasata Shishimam. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganges Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's World Mission Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premananda, Hari Gaur. Namo Vishnu Vinaya Krishna Vasaya Shrimati Saraswati Nanda Paramahamsa Tanande. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kacharani Namaste Sasimi. Hari Gaur, Namaste. Sorry about the chanting. I attended a 4.5-hour kirtan yesterday and my throat's feeling it. Om Jnanatam-arandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Jena Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Darati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet. So welcome everyone. So we were going to try to do a review of the entire 8th canto today. And I thought we would see how it goes by just reading the chapter summaries from each chapter and see what kind of discussion that leads us into and take it from there. So the 8th canto is, the whole canto is entitled, I had it a second ago. Go back to here. Withdraw of the cosmic manifestation, I think it was. And so chapter 1 is the Manus, administrators of the universe. Chapter summary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. First of all, let me offer my humble, respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Sri Śrīmad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Sometime in the year 1935, when His Divine Grace was staying at Radhakund, I went to see him from Bombay. At that time, he gave me many important instructions in regard to constructing temples and publishing books. He personally told me that publishing books is more important than constructing temples. Of course, those same instructions remained within my mind for many years. In 1944, I began publishing my Back to Godhead magazine. And when I retired from family life in 1958, I began publishing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam in Delhi. When 3 parts of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam had been published in India, I then started for the United States of America on the 13th of August, 1965. I am continuously trying to publish books as suggested by my spiritual master. Now, in this year, 1976, I have completed the 7th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and a summary of the 10th canto has already been published as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Still, the 8th canto, 9th canto, 10th canto, 11th canto, and 12th canto are yet to be published. On this occasion, therefore, I am praying to my spiritual master to give me strength to finish this work. I am neither a great scholar nor a great devotee. I am simply a humble servant of my spiritual master. And to the best of my ability, I am trying to please him by publishing these books with the cooperation of my disciples in America. Fortunately, scholars all over the world are appreciating these publications. Let us cooperatively publish more and more volumes of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam just to please His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. How wonderful is that? This is the essence of the Vaishnava. He has one motivation, or she. The Vaishnava has one motivation, and that's to please their spiritual master in some way or another. And it's not like we have to be a great Shaktivesh avatar like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was in order to please our spiritual master. We simply have to be feeling that I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, and that my happiness comes from that service and helping other people to attain that service to Krishna through the agency of my spiritual master. Continuing. This first chapter of the 8th canto may be summarized as a description of 4 manus, namely Swayambhuva, Swaroshisha, Uttama, and Tamasha. After hearing descriptions of the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu until the end of the 7th canto, Maharaj Parikshit desired to know about other Manus. He desired to understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends, not only in the past, but at the present and in the future, and how he acts in various pastimes as Manu. Since Parikshit Maharaj was eager to know all this, Sukadeva Goswami gradually described all the Manus, beginning with the 6 Manus who had appeared in the past. The first Manu was Swayambhuva Manu. His 2 daughters, namely Akuti and Devahuti, gave birth to 2 sons, named Yajna and Kapila, respectively. Because Sukadeva Goswami had already described the activities of Kapila in the 3rd canto, he now described the activities of Jagna. The original Manu, along with his wife, Satarupa, went into the forest to practice austerities on the bank of the river Sunanda. They practiced austerities for 100 years, and then Manu, in a trance, formed prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rakshasas and Asuras then attempted to devour him, but Jagna, accompanied by his sons, the Yamas and the demigods, killed them. Then Jagna personally took the post of Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. The second Manu, whose name was Swaroshisha, was the son of Agni, and his sons were headed by Dayumat, Sasena, and Roshishmat. In the age of this Manu, Rochana became Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, and there were many demigods headed by Tushishta. There were also many saintly persons, such as Urja and Stamba. Among them was Vedashira, whose wife, Tushita, gave birth to Vibhu. Vibhu instructed 88,000 Dritavratas, or saintly persons, on control and austerity. Uttama, the son of Priyavrata, was the 3rd Manu. Among his sons were Pavana, Sanjaya, and Jagnahotra. During the reign of this Manu, the sons of Vashishta, headed by Pramada, became the 7 saintly persons. The Satyas, Devasutras, and Badras became the demigods, and Satrajit became Indra. From the womb of Sumrita, the wife of Dharma, the Lord appeared as Satyasena, and he killed all the Yakshas and Rakshasas who were fighting with Satrajit. Tamasha, the brother of the 3rd Manu, was the 4th Manu, and he had 10 sons, including Prithu, Kayati, Nara, and Ketu. During his reign, the Satyakas, Haris, Viras, and others were demigods. The 7 great saints were headed by Jyotirhanma, and Trishtika became Indra. Hari Meda begot a son named Hari in the womb of his wife Harini. This Hari, an incarnation of God, saved the devotee Jagendra. This incident is described as Jagendra Mokshana at the end of this chapter. Parikshit Maharaj particularly asked about this incident. So there seems to be some value into honoring and glorifying the different manus and the different positions that their sons and everyone took. I don't personally fully understand it. Being a self-absorbed resident of Kali Yuga, I don't have the capacity or to remember all these different personalities and how they fit into the great scheme of things. But it's nice to have the background information about them, how the manus are there to administer the universe, and how the different personalities take on the roles of the different demigods, whether it's Indra, Varuna, or whatever. We tend to think of Indra as a single personality, right? Well, that's Indra, right? But it's just actually Indra's a post, and that post is occupied different personalities under different manus. So it kind of gives us an overview and kind of widens our perspective of the workings of the universe. It kind of gives us a glimpse outside of that frog in the well mentality that we have a tendency to get caught up in. Okay, chapter 2, the elephant Jagendra's crisis. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chapters of this canto describe how the Lord, during the reign of the 4th Manu, gave protection to the king of the elephants. As described in this 2nd chapter, when the king of the elephants, along with his female elephants, were enjoying the water, a crocodile suddenly attacked him, and the elephant surrendered to the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead for protection. In the midst of the ocean of milk, there is a very high and beautiful mountain that has an altitude of 10,000 yojanas, or 80,000 miles. This mountain is known as Trikuta. In a valley of Trikuta, there was a nice garden named Riktumat, which was constructed by Varuna, and in that area was a very nice lake. Once, the chief of the elephants, along with female elephants, went to enjoy bathing in that lake, and they disturbed the inhabitants of the water. Because of this, the chief crocodile in the water, who was very powerful, immediately attacked the elephant's leg. Thus there ensued a great fight between the elephant and the crocodile. This fight continued for 1,000 years. Neither the elephant nor the crocodile died, but since they were in the water, the elephant gradually became weak, whereas the power of the crocodile increased more and more. Thus the crocodile became more and more encouraged. Then the elephant, being helpless and seeing that there was no other way for his protection, sought shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I remember in one of the purports, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada made the comparison. He was making the point that in our attempts to return home back to Godhead, we have to do whatever's necessary to maintain our perspective and be able to make gradual progress along this path of self-realization and purification. And he made the point that it was mentioned how the elephant being in the water was at a disadvantage because he was a land animal, whereas the crocodile being and water animal being in the water, he was encouraged by his circumstances, and therefore he was gaining strength while the elephant was losing strength. He mentioned in one of the purports that in many places in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, the advantages of remaining brahmachari are very great. We have the instance where Narada Muni found these wonderful sons of Daksha, and he sent them to perform performances before becoming Prajapatis. And Narada Muni thought, wow, what a waste. These guys are going to go and enter into householder life for thousands of years. They're almost ready to go back to Krishna. Let's give them a little nudge, and gave them instruction, and they all decided to remain brahmacharis and go back to Krishna in this very lifetime. And Daksha was very upset. When it happened the second time, he got even more upset, and he cursed Indra. And that didn't work out very well for Daksha. I mean, I didn't curse any, cursed Narada Muni. And so then Lord Brahma suggested maybe you should have daughters instead of sons, right? So then he had 100 daughters, and then these daughters were divided up amongst the different great personalities. I think Kashyapa got, was it 13 or was it 26 of the daughters? I don't remember. We might find it in one of these things. But anyway, going on. So the point that Bhaktivedanta is talking about, even though there's a lot of advantages to remaining in the brahmachari ashram if one is able, and not being distracted by entering into householder life, it's not always possible, right? We have to deal with where we are. We can't just pretend we're more advanced position than we are. And so if we have attractions to householder life, it's better to be an honest householder and making your gradual progress in householder life than to be a cheating so-called brahmachari. While he's in the brahmachari ashram, he's still meditating on sexual desires and this and that, and he's actually trying to fool himself and fool the society and fool his spiritual master and fool Krishna that he's someone he's not. And so it's better to accept the ashram that is more suited to our personal circumstances and be satisfied with the gradual advancement we can make in that ashram instead of trying to pretend that we're something that we're not. Okay, chapter 3. Jigendra's prayers of surrender. In this chapter, the prayers by Jigendra, the king of the elephants, are described. It appears that the king of the elephants was formerly a human being known as Indradumna, and that he learned a prayer to the Supreme Lord. Fortunately, he remembered that prayer and began to chant it to himself. First, he offered his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because of his awkward position and having been attacked by the crocodile, he expressed his inability to recite prayers nicely. Nonetheless, he tried to chant the mantra and expressed himself in appropriate words as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, the original person from whom everything is emanated. He is the root cause of this cosmic manifestation, and the entire cosmos rests in him. Yet he is transcendental, for he does everything in relation to the material world through his external energy. He is eternally situated in the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, where he engages us in his eternal pastimes. The material world is a product of his external energy or material nature, which works under his direction. It is thus that the creation, maintenance, and annihilation take place. The Lord exists at all times. This is extremely difficult for a non-devotee to understand. Although the transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead is perceivable by everyone, only the pure devotees perceive his presence and activities. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely free from material birth, death, old age, and disease. Indeed, if anyone in this material world takes shelter of him, he also becomes situated in that transcendental position. For the satisfaction of the devotee, Paritanaya Sudhanam, the Lord appears and exhibits his activities. His appearance, disappearance, and other pastimes are not at all material. One who knows this secret can enter the kingdom of God. Right? You're all familiar with that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? The one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance does not, at the time of death, return to this material world. Instead, returns to my eternal abode. One who knows this secret can enter the kingdom of God. In the Lord, all opposing elements are adjusted. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. He is the controller of everything. He is the witness of all activities. And he is the original source of all living entities. Indeed, all living entities are parts of him, for he is the origin of Mahavishnu, who is the source of the living entities within this material world. The Lord can observe the activities of our senses, which can work and achieve material results because of his mercy. Right? So anything we can do or achieve, so any talents or qualities that we have that we may have some pride in, are simply due to the mercy of Krishna. Although he is the original source of everything, he is untouched by any of his byproducts. In this way, he is like a gold mine, which is the source of gold and ornaments, and yet is different from the ornaments themselves. The Lord is worshipped by the method prescribed in the Pancharataras. He is the source of our knowledge, and he can give us liberation. Therefore, it is our duty to understand him according to the instructions of the devotees, in particular, the spiritual master. So the point being made here is that as the parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have certain characteristics and qualities that are similar to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because of our infinitesimal size, our ability to execute our desires is completely dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's a saying that man proposes and God disposes. Krishna is as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely full in himself. He needs no one else to satisfy him, become fulfilled. Like there's these movies, right? Like what was that movie? Jerry Maguire, right? He's some kind of sports agent, manager, whatever guy, right? And he goes through this whole arc where he's at the top of his career and then he crashes and burns. And then he only has this one last guy that he's managing and he falls in love with this woman and da 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 da. And at the end of the movie, the guy becomes a great successful football player and his career gets kickstarted again. But even though all these wonderful things are happening, it's incomplete because he needs to share it with someone, right? So he has to rush into his girlfriend's house who's broken up with him because he was being a jerk and say, you complete me, right? Even though I've got all this stuff, I'm incomplete without you. This is not Krishna. Krishna is not incomplete without us. We're incomplete without Krishna. And the writers of the movie may have written that this guy becomes complete with his girlfriend, but that's not actually the fact. The tiny Jiva cannot complete us. We must have the relationship with the Supreme Person in order to become complete and whole. But because Krishna is complete in himself, he still enjoys loving relationships with his parts and parcels, right? And because he is complete in himself and he's not dependent on anyone else for his enjoyment, he has no problem taking the lower position. In fact, he enjoys serving his devotees. And even those of us who are rebellious and not acting as his devotees, and we've come to the material world, which he's provided for us so that we could pretend that we are separate from him or try to forget him and try to usurp his position. He still does all these things to help us. There's no touch of enmity or anything within the Supreme Lord. His love for us is unconditional and unmotivated and unending and uninterrupted. In this way, he's like a gold mine, which is the source of gold and ornaments, and yet is different from the ornaments themselves. The Lord is worshipped by the method prescribed in the Pancharatras. He is the source of our knowledge, and he can give us liberation. Therefore, it is our duty to understand him according to the instructions of the devotees, in particular the spiritual master. Although for us, the mode of goodness is covered, by following the instructions of saintly persons in the spiritual master, we can be freed from material clutches. The self-effulgent material form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is adored by non-devotees. His impersonal form is adored by those advanced in spiritual knowledge, and his feature as the localized supersoul is appreciated by yogis. But his original form as a person is understood only by devotees. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is competent to dissipate the darkness of the conditioned soul through his instructions in Bhagavad Gita. He is the ocean of transcendental qualities and can be understood only by liberated persons freed from the bodily concept of life. By his causeless mercy, the Lord can rescue the conditioned soul from the material clutches and enable him to return home back to Godhead, to become his personal associate. Nonetheless, a pure devotee does not aspire to go back to Godhead. He is simply satisfied with executing his service in this material world. A pure devotee does not ask anything from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His only prayer is to be freed from the material conception of life and to be engaged in the Lord's transcendental loving service. In this way, the king of the elephants, Jigendra, offered prayers directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without mistaking him for one of the demigods. None of the demigods came to see him, not even Brahma or Shiva. Rather, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, seated on Garuda, personally appeared before him. Jigendra, by lifting his trunk, offered obeisances to the Lord, and the Lord immediately pulled him from the water along with the crocodile who had captured his leg. Then the Lord killed the crocodile and thus rescued Jigendra. Chapter 4. So, if someone in an elephant body can fully surrender to Krishna and please him, what's our excuse? We've got the human form of life. We have a bona fide spiritual master. We have the association of wonderful Vaishnavas. We have the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Brahma Samhita. So many wonderful scriptures, so many wonderful prayers, like those of Bhaktivinoda and Narottam Das Thakur. We are very fortunate. Chapter 4. Jigendra returns to the spiritual world. This fourth chapter describes the previous birth of Jigendra and the crocodile. It tells how the crocodile became a Gandharva and how Jigendra became an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was a king on the Gandharva planet whose name was Huhu. Once this king Huhu was enjoying with women in the water, and while enjoying, he pulled the leg of the Valarishi, who was also taking a bath in the water. Upon this, the sage became very angry and immediately cursed him to become a crocodile. King Huhu was very sorry when cursed in that way, and he begged a pardon from the sage, who in compassion gave him the benediction that he would be freed when Jigendra was delivered by the personality of Godhead. Thus, the crocodile was delivered when killed by Narayan. This is the wonderful thing of these great saintly persons. They're not aware of not just the past and the present, but they're also aware of the future due to their connection with the Supersoul. So even though he was externally angry and cursing this king, he cursed him in such a way that the king would ultimately be benefited by the curse. When Jigendra, by the mercy of the Lord, became one of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, he got 4 hands. This achievement is called Sarupya Mukti, or the liberation of receiving a spiritual body exactly like that of Narayan. Jigendra, in his previous birth, had been a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. His name was Indradumna, and he was the king of the Tamiliya country. Following in the Vedic principles, this king retired from family life and constructed a small cottage in the Malayachala hills, where he always worshiped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in silence. Agastya Rishi, along with many disciples, once approached King Indradumna's ashram, but because the king was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not receive Agastya Rishi properly. Thus, the Rishi became very angry and cursed the king to become a dull elephant. In accordance with this curse, the king was born as an elephant, and he forgot all about his previous activities in devotional service. Nonetheless, in his birth as an elephant, when he was dangerously attacked by the crocodile, he remembered his past life in devotional service and remembered a prayer he had learned in that life. Because of this prayer, he again received the mercy of the Lord. Thus, he was immediately delivered, and he became one of the Lord's 4-handed associates. Sukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing the good fortune of the elephant. Sukadeva Goswami says that by hearing the narration of Jigendra's deliverance, one can also get the opportunity to be delivered. Sukadeva Goswami vividly describes this, and thus the chapter ends. Well, at the end of the chapter is a blessing. O best of the Kuru dynasty, the supreme personality of Godhead, the super soul of everyone, being thus pleased, addressed Jigendra in the presence of everyone there. He spoke the following blessings. The supreme personality of Godhead said, freed from all sinful reactions are those who rise from bed at the end of night, early in the morning, and fully concentrate their minds with great attention upon my form, your form, this lake, this mountain, the caves, the gardens, the cane plants, the bamboo plants, the celestial trees, the residential quarters of me, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the three peaks of the Trikuta mountain, made of gold, silver, and iron, my very pleasing abode, the ocean of milk, the white island, Swetadweep, which is always brilliant with spiritual rays, my mark of Srivatsa, the Kastuba gem, my Vijayanti garland, my club, Komandaki, my Sudarsan disc, and Panchanjaya conchshell, my bearer, Garuda, the king of the birds, my bed, Seshanaga, my expansion of energy, the goddess of fortune, Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, Prahlad, my incarnations like Matsya, Kurma, and Varaha, my unlimited, all auspicious activities, which yield piety to those who hear them, which yield piety to he who hears them, the sun, the moon, fire, the mantra Omkara, the absolute truth, the total material energy, the cows and Brahmins, devotional service, the wives of Soma and Kashyapa, who are all daughters of King Daksha, the rivers Ganges, Sarasvati, Nanda, and Jamuna, Kalindi, the elephant Airavrata, Dhruva Maharaj, the seven rishis, and the pious human beings. My dear devotee, unto those who rise from bed at the end of night and offer me the prayers offered by you, I give an eternal residence in the spiritual world at the end of their lives. Sukadeva Goswami continued, after giving this instruction, the Lord, who is known as Harishikesh, bugled with his Panchanjaya conchshell, in this way pleasing all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma. Then he mounted the back of his carrier, Garuda. So being Kali Yuga and being the fallen souls that we are, we can achieve these very same results by simply rising from bed early in the morning, offering our obeisances to our spiritual master, and chanting the Maha Mantra our prescribed amount of times, and thus pleasing the spiritual master and pleasing Krishna. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I could memorize that whole prayer, nor meditate on all the different aspects of that place and the different plants and rivers. Chapter 5. There's 24 chapters. We may not finish this today. Chapter 5. The demigods appeal to the Lord for protection. This chapter describes the fifth and sixth Manus, and it also describes the prayers of the demigods and the curse of Durvasa Muni. The brother of Tamasa, the fourth Manu, who has previously been described, was the fifth Manu, Raivata. The sons of Raivata included Arjuna, Bali, and Vindhya. During the reign of this Manu, Indra, the king of heaven, was known as Vibhu. Among the demigods were the Bhuttarayas, and among the seven rishis were Haranyaroma, Vedashira, and Udrabahu. The rishi, known as Subra, and his wife, Vaikuntha, gave birth to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vaikuntha. This Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested a Vaikuntha planet at the request of Ramadevi. His power and activities are mentioned in the third canto. The sixth Manu was Chakshusha, the son of Chakshusha Manu. Among the sons of the sixth Manu were Puru, Purusha, and Sudyana. During the reign of this Manu, Mantradrumna was Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. Among the demigods were the Apyas, and among the seven rishis were Havishman and Viraka. The wife of Vairaja, whose name was Devashambhuti, gave birth to Ajita, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Ajita, taking the shape of a tortoise and holding the mountain known as Mandara on his back, churned the ocean and produced nectar for the demigods. I guess another name for Kurma is Ajita. Maharaj Parikshit was very eager to hear about the churning of the ocean, and therefore Sukadeva Goswami began to explain to him how the demigods, having been cursed by Durvasa Muni, were defeated in battle by the Asuras. When the demigods were deprived of their heavenly kingdom, they went to the assembly house of Lord Brahma and informed Lord Brahma of what had happened. Then Brahma, along with all the demigods, went to the shore of the ocean of milk and offered prayers to Kshirodakshai Vishnu. So although the demigods are all devotees of Lord Vishnu, they still have material desires that end up causing them all kinds of anxieties. Chapter 6. The demigods and the demons declare a truce. This chapter describes how the Lord appeared before the demigods when they were in. This chapter describes how the Lord appeared before the demigods when they offered him their prayers. Following the advice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods executed a truce with the demons for the purpose of churning the nectar of the sea. Because of the prayers offered by the demigods in the previous chapter, Lord Kshirodakshai Vishnu was pleased with the demigods, and thus he appeared before them. The demigods were almost blinded by his transcendental bodily effulgence. At first, therefore, they could not even see any part of his body. After some time, however, when Brahma could see the Lord, he, along with Lord Shiva, began to offer the Lord prayers. Lord Brahma said, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being beyond birth and death, is eternal. He has no material qualities, yet he is the ocean of unlimited auspicious qualities. He is subtler than the most subtle. He is invisible, and his form is inconceivable. He is worshipable for all the demigods. Innumerable universes exist within his form, and therefore he is never separated from these universes by time, space, or circumstances. He is the chief and the pradhana. Although he is the beginning, the middle, and the end of the material creation, the idea of pantheism conceived by the Mayavadi philosophers has no validity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls the entire material manifestation through his subordinate agent, the external energy. Because of his inconceivable transcendental position, he is always the master of the material energy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in his various forms is always present, even within this material world. But the material qualities cannot touch him. One can understand his position only by his instructions, as given in Bhagavad Gita. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Dadami Buddha Yanangmi, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tvam, Buddhi Yoga, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Buddhi Yoga means Bhakti Yoga. Only through the process of Bhakti Yoga can one understand the Supreme Lord. When offered prayers by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was pleased. Thus, he gave appropriate instructions to all the demigods. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Ajita, unconquerable, advised the demigods to make a peace proposal to the demons so that after formulating a truce, the demigods and demons could churn the ocean of milk. The rope would be the biggest serpent, known as Vashuki, and the churning rod would be Mandara Mountain. Poison would be also produced from the churning, but it would be taken by Lord Shiva, and so there would be no need to fear it. Many other attractive things would be generated by the churning, but the Lord warned the demigods not to be captivated by such things, nor should the demigods be angry if there were some disturbances. After advising the demigods in this way, the Lord disappeared from the scene. Following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods established a peace with Maharaj Bali, the king of the demons. Then both the demons and the demigods started for the ocean, taking Mandara Mountain with them. Because of the great heaviness of the mountain, the demigods and the demons became fatigued, and some of them were actually died. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, appeared there on the back of his carrier, Garuda, and by his mercy, he brought these demigods and demons back to life. The Lord then lifted the mountain with one of his hands and placed it on the back of Garuda. The Lord sat on the mountain and was carried to the spot of the churning by Garuda, who placed the mountain in the middle of the sea. Then the Lord asked Garuda to leave that place, because as long as Garuda was present, Vashuki could not come there. Because why?
He is a snake.
Right, and all snakes are?
Enemies of Garuda?
They're afraid of being eaten
by Garuda?
Yeah, they're afraid of being. Now, although I've never directly read it, I'm assuming that any snake that is directly eaten by Garuda is greatly benefited by that activity and takes a much better birth in his next life, and not completely liberated. Chapter 7. Lord Shiva saves the universe by drinking poison. The summary of the 7th chapter is as follows. As described in this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as described in this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing in his incarnation as a tortoise, dove deep into the ocean to carry the Mandara mountain on his back. At first, the churning of the ocean produced Kalakuta poison. Everyone feared this poison, but Lord Shiva satisfied them by drinking it. And the little bits that he didn't drink that splashed out on the ground were taken up by what are now all the venomous serpents and spiders and things like that nowadays. By Lord Shiva's mercy, they were able to take that poison and become venomous. With the understanding that when the nectar was generated from the churning, they would share it with equally, the demigods and the demons brought Vashuki to be used as the rope for the churning rod. By the expert management of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, The demons held the snake near the mouth, whereas the demigods held the tail of the great snake. Then, with great endeavor, they began pulling the snake in both directions. Because the churning rod, Mandara mountain, was very heavy and was not held by any support on the water, it sank into the ocean. And in this way, the prowess of both the demons and the demigods was vanquished. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then appeared in the form of a tortoise and supported Mandara mountain on his back. Then the churning resumed with great force. As a result of the churning, a huge amount of poison was produced. The Prajapatis, seeing no one else to save them, approached Lord Shiva and offered him prayers full of truth. Lord Shiva is called Ashutosha, because he is very pleased if one is a devotee. Therefore, he easily agreed to drink all the poison generated by the churning. The goddess Durga, Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, was not at all disturbed when Lord Shiva agreed to drink the poison, for she knew Lord Shiva's prowess. Indeed, she expressed her pleasure at this agreement. Then Lord Shiva gathered the devastating poison, which was everywhere. He took it in his hand and drank it. After he drank the poison, his neck became bluish. A small quantity of the poison dropped from his hands to the ground, and it is because of this poison that there are poisonous snakes, scorpions, toxic plants, and other poisonous things in this world. So if you remember that chapter, when the demons and the demigods were trying to churn the ocean, they didn't have the strength to do it. First, the mountain began to sink, but then even after Kurma or Ajita came and lifted the mountain up, they got too tired. They couldn't do it. They weren't up to the task. And finally, Lord Vishnu had to appear and personally finish the churning. So this whole thing was first Vishnu proposed this whole thing, right? That they churn the ocean. And then when they tried to carry the Mandara mountain, they couldn't do that. It slipped from their hands. They got crushed. Their bodies were killed. Lord Vishnu had to come again, lift up the mountain, put it on the back of Garuda, bring these guys back to life, take it, put it in the water for them, right? Send Garuda away so Vashuki could come so they could use a churning rod. Then they start churning. Mountain starts to sink. Vishnu has to come again, save them as Kurma lifts up the mountain. But Krishna, being the supreme enjoyer, also got his back scratched. He had an itch. And the churning of the mountain on his back, he thought that was very nice. Got just the right spot for him. So, but then even then, they still couldn't finish the churning. So then Lord Vishnu had to get there and finish the churning, made the poison. Now, then Lord Shiva had to step up and drink the poison. So, and in spite of all of this, the demigods and the demons were still all puffed up, thinking that they were these great, powerful personalities. The only difference was the demigods appreciated the facts, the actions of Lord Vishnu, and it increased their devotion for him, Lord Vishnu, whereas the demigods just became even more envious of Vishnu. You ever experience that? You try to help someone out with something, and they get mad at you. I can do it myself, whatever, right? They bark at you, and they think you're belittling them by trying to help them out. Okay, chapter 8, the churning of the ocean, of the milk ocean. Is this working for you guys? You're able to absorb some of this? Okay.
Yeah, I like it. It's nice.
It's very helpful.
Kind of ties it together again, right?
Yeah, so much, because of Kali Yuga and where I'm at, I forget so much, but it's so wonderful to remember all of this.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue then. The churning of the milk ocean. This chapter describes how the goddess of fortune appeared during the churning of the ocean of milk and how she accepted Lord Vishnu as her husband. As described later in this chapter, when Dhanvantari appeared with the pot of nectar, the demons immediately snatched it from him. But Lord Vishnu appeared as the incarnation Mohini, the most beautiful woman in the world, just to capture the demons and save the nectar for the demigods. After Lord Shiva drank all the poison, both the demigods and the demons took courage and resumed their activities of churning. Because of this churning, first a Sarabi cow was produced. Great saintly persons accepted this cow to derive clarified butter from its milk and offer this clarified butter in oblations for great sacrifices. Thereafter, a horse named Uchashrava was generated. This horse was taken by Bali Maharaj. Then there appeared Ayavrata and other elephants that could go anywhere in any direction. And the she-elephants also appeared. The gem known as Kashtuba was also generated, and Lord Vishnu took that gem and placed it on his chest. Thereafter, a Parijati flower and the Apsaras, the most beautiful women in the universe, were generated. Then the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, appeared. The demigods, great sages, Gandharvas, and others offered their respectful worship. The goddess of fortune could not find anyone to accept as her husband. At last, she selected Lord Vishnu to be her master. Lord Vishnu gave her a place to stay everlastingly on his chest. Because of this combination of Lakshmi and Narayan, all who were present, including the demigods and people in general, were very pleased. The demons, however, being neglected by the goddess of fortune, were very much depressed. Then Varuni, the goddess of drinking, was generated, and by the order of Lord Vishnu, the demons accepted her. Then the demons and demigods, with renewed energy, began to churn again. This time, a partial incarnation of Lord Vishnu called Dhanvantari appeared. He was very beautiful, and he carried a jug containing nectar. The demons immediately snatched the jug from Dhanvantari's hand and began to run away, and the demigods, being very morose, took shelter of Lord Vishnu. That's the one thing the demigods have going for them. They know how to take shelter of Krishna when things go against them. After the demons snatched the jug from Dhanvantari, they began to fight amongst themselves. Lord Vishnu solaced the demigods, who therefore did not fight, but remained silent. While the fighting was going on among the demons, the Lord himself appeared as the incarnation Mohini, the most beautiful woman in the universe. So this is the problem with being a demon, right? You may be very powerful and you may be very clever and you may have the nerve to go ahead and break the rules and steal the nectar and run off with it. But because of your demoniac nature, you can't get along with your fellow thieves, and you end up fighting with each other and get defeated in the long run. One of these wonderful lessons. Chapter 9, the Lord incarnates as Mohini Murti. This chapter describes how the demons, being enchanted by the beauty of Mohini form, agreed to hand over the container of nectar to Mohini Devi, who tactfully delivered it to the demigods. When the demons got possession of the container of nectar, an extraordinarily beautiful young woman appeared before them. All the demons became captivated by the young woman's beauty and became attracted to her. Now, because the demons were fighting among themselves to possess the nectar, they selected this beautiful woman as the mediator to settle their quarrel. Taking advantage of their weakness in this regard, Mohini, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, got the demons to promise that whatever decision she might give, they would not refuse to accept it. When the demons made this promise, the beautiful woman, Mohini Murti, had the demigods and demons sit in different lines so that she could distribute the nectar. She knew that the demons were quite unfit to drink the nectar. Therefore, by cheating them, she distributed all the nectar to the demigods. When the demons saw this cheating of Mohini Murti, they remained silent. But one demon named Rahu dressed himself like a demigod and sat down in the line of the demigods. He sat beside the sun and the moon. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead understood how Rahu was cheating, he immediately cut off the demon's head. Rahu, however, had already tasted the nectar, and therefore, although his head was severed, he remained alive. After the demigods finished drinking the nectar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead assumed his own form. Sukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing how powerful is the chanting of the holy names, pastimes, and paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, we might want to revisit the last few verses before we continue with chapter 10. We'll read the last translation, text 29. In human society, there are various activities performed for the protection of one's wealth and the life of one's words, one's mind, and one's actions. But they are all performed for one's personal or extended sense gratification with reference to the body. All these activities are baffled because of being separate from devotional service. When the same activities are performed for the satisfaction of the Lord, the beneficial results are distributed to everyone, just as water poured on the root of a tree is distributed throughout the entire tree. In the purport, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada states, this is the distinction between materialistic activities and activities performed in Krishna consciousness. The entire world is active, and this includes the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the bhaktas. However, all activities except those of the bhaktas, the devotees, end in bafflement and a waste of time and energy. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vaishthishtata. Bhagavad Gita 9:12. If one is not a devotee, his hopes, his activities, and his knowledge are all baffled. A non-devotee works for his personal sense gratification or for the gratification of his family, society, community, or nation. But because all such activities are separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are all considered asat. The word asat means bad or temporary, and sat means permanent and good. Activities performed for the satisfaction of Krishna are permanent and good. But asat activity, although sometimes celebrated as philanthropy, altruism, nationalism, thisism, or thatism, will never produce any permanent result and is therefore all bad. Even a little work done in Krishna consciousness is a permanent asset and is all good because it is done for Krishna. The all-good Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everyone's friend, Sudurdam Sarvabhutanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only enjoyer and proprietor of everything. Bhoktaram Jagnatapasham Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Therefore, any activity performed for the Supreme Lord is permanent. As a result of such activities, the performer is immediately recognized. Such a devotee, because of full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is immediately transcendental, although he may superficially appear to be engaged in materialistic activities. The only distinction between materialistic activity and spiritual activity is that material activity is performed only to satisfy one's own senses, whereas spiritual activity is meant to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By spiritual activity, everyone factually benefits, whereas by materialistic activity, no one benefits, and instead one becomes entangled in the laws of karma. Minor difference. I would often come back to that instruction when, in the early days of my chanting, and Maya was especially trying to tempt me away from devotional service and proposing this solution and that solution. It was that knowledge that always saved me, came in to save me. That there's no value in materialist activities. There's no actual benefit. There's no actual satisfaction. I learned that at a young age. I can still remember the exact moment when it became so crystal clear to me. I was just had I forget what happened, some blowout with my father. I was a very unhappy person. And I thought, man, here's this guy working so hard, doing this and doing that. He's had 9 kids. None of his kids relate to him. None of his kids respect him. None of his kids show him any affection. He's tried to make this his mark in the real estate world, and it keeps getting baffled and this and that. Despite all of his struggles, he's just this miserable being who's addicted to intoxication and womanizing, and he's just a miserable person. Says, I don't want that life. I'm going to find another way to live my life. I'm not going to end up being my father. And so it was by Krishna's arrangement that I was given such a vivid example of the result of materialistic life that helped me in so many ways. Chapter 10. It's probably as far as we're going to get to go. The battle between the demigods and the demons. The summary of chapter 10 is as follows. Because of envy, the fight between the demons and the demigods continued. When the demigods were almost defeated by the demoniac maneuvers and became morose, Lord Vishnu appeared among them. Both the demigods and the demons were expert in activities involving the material energy, but the demigods are devotees of the Lord, whereas the demons are just the opposite. The demigods and demons churn the ocean of milk to get nectar from it, but the demons, not being devotees of the Lord, could derive no profit. After feeding the nectar to the demigods, Lord Vishnu returned to his abode on the back of Garuda, but the demons, being most aggrieved, again declared war against the demigods. Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochana, became the commander-in-chief of the demons. In the beginning of the battle, the demigods prepared to defeat the demons. Indra, king of heaven, fought with Bali, and other demigods like Vayu, Agni, and Varuna fought against other leaders of the demons. In this fight, the demons were defeated, and to save themselves from death, they began to manifest many illusions through material maneuvers, killing many soldiers on the side of the demigods. The demigods, finding no other recourse, surrendered again to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, who then appeared and counteracted all the illusions presented by the jugglery of the demons. Heroes among the demons, such as Kalanimi, Mali, Sumali, and Malavan, fought the Supreme Personality of Godhead and were all killed by the Lord. The demigods were thus freed from all dangers. These guys are just determined to have something to fight about. This is the nature of the material world. I think we can fit in one more. Chapter 11. King Indra annihilates the demons. As described in this chapter, the great saint Narada Muni, being very compassionate to the demons who had been killed by the demigods, forbade the demigods to continue killing. Then Sukracharya, by his mystic power, renewed the lives of all the demons. Having been graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods began fighting the demons again with renewed energy. King Indra released his thunderbolt against Bali, and when Bali fell, his friend Jambasura attacked Indra, who then cut off Jambasura's head with his thunderbolt. When Narada Muni learned that Jambasura had been killed, he informed Jambasura's relatives Namuchi, Bala, and Paka, who then went to the battlefield and attacked the demigods. Indra, king of heaven, severed the heads of Bala and Paka and released the weapon known as Kulisha, the thunderbolt, against Namuchi's shoulder. The thunderbolt, however, returned unsuccessful, and thus Indra became morose. At that time, an unseen voice came from the sky. The voice declared, "A dry or wet weapon cannot kill Namuchi." Hearing this voice, Indra began to think of how Namuchi could be killed. He then thought of foam, which is neither moist nor dry. Using a weapon of foam, he was able to kill Namuchi. Thus, Indra and the other demigods killed many demons. Then, at the request of Lord Brahma, Narada went to the demigods and forbade them to kill all the demons any longer. All the demigods returned to their abodes. Following the instructions of Narada, whatever demons remained alive on the battlefield took Bali Maharaj to Ashta mountain. There, by the touch of Sukracharya's hand, Bali Maharaj regained his senses and consciousness, and those demons whose heads and bodies had not been completely lost were brought back to life by the mystic power of Sukracharya. I think we'll leave it there for today. It's a very enlightening chapter in that in case one had the tendency to be attracted to wanting to take birth in the heavenly planets, it kind of puts it into proper perspective, you know. The heavenly planets aren't all that they're cracked up to be. I mean, there's planets up there. What chapter was that in? Fourth canto? There's these mango trees that produce mangoes that are as large as elephants. And when they fall to the ground, they crack open. And there's so much juice in them, the juice flows out of the mango and makes a river of mango juice that flows down. And this juice is so sweet and so amazing that it actually forms gold on the bank of the river where the mango juice meets the earth. And you think, wow, I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool place to live. You don't have to scoop up some of this mango juice and whatever. But it comes at a cost. It doesn't really satisfy you anyway. Anyone have anything they care to add or comments? No? All right. Turn original sound back on and have a little bit of a chat. Trying to find something in a key that I can actually sing in today. Haribol.